Good morning. We need to look at Jesus again in the arc of sort of the meta-narrative of biblical history, the big theological categories. And as we have seen him as creator, we've seen him reversing the fall and engaging the issue of the fall as the second Adam. We need to see him now as the one who brings redemption, creation, fall, redemption, and then we move to recreation. For now, we're going to spend the next couple of days looking at this idea of Jesus in a larger redemptive plan. To do that, we're going to pick it apart a little bit, but do so by looking at the major covenants of the Bible and how they find their cash out, if you will. They find their fulfillment in Jesus. So in Genesis 12, Abraham was promised that he would receive a people, a progeny, and that those people would be God's people, and that those people would be used to bless others, and that other people would in some way be blessed by God with how they related to God's people that came through Abraham. Well, that covenant, the Abrahamic Covenant, really came into effect and was effected as a covenant in Genesis 15. And I want to read to you a little bit of a lengthy portion this morning. Genesis 15, verses 7 through 21. And he said to him, this is the Lord said to Abraham, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to possess. But he said, O Lord, this is what Abram said to him, O Lord, how am I to know that I shall possess it? And he said to him, bring me a heifer 3 years old, and a female goat 3 years old, a ram 3 years old, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he brought him all these, and cut them in half, and laid each half over against the other. But he did not cut the birds in half. And when the birds of prey came down on the carcasses, Abram drove them away. As the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell on Abram. And behold, dreadful and great darkness fell upon him. Then the Lord said to Abram, know for certain that your offspring will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and will be servants there, and they will be afflicted for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on the nation that they serve, and afterward they shall come out with great possessions. As for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried in a good old age, and they shall come back here in the 4th generation, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. When the sun had gone down, and it was dark, behold, a smoking firepot and a flaming torch passed between the pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your offspring I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. Now, picture this moment. God is making a covenant with Abraham, and he's doing an ancient blood covenant. He cuts the animals in half. The pieces are spread apart. It creates a path. And in an ancient blood covenant, two individuals who are making the covenant would pass through the halves, pour out the blood at the end, reciting the terms of the covenant as they pass through the halves of the animal parts on that path. And they would be bound by blood concerning the terms of that covenant. In this case, only God passes through in the embodiment, if you will, of the smoking fire pot and torch. God is making an agreement, but it's a one-directional, monolateral, unidirectional covenant with Abraham. In the ancient world, it was called a grant covenant. He's granting him something, and that is, you will be my people, and there's nothing you can do to change it. Your descendants will be my people. I'll give you a land. There's nothing you can do to change it. I am covenanting with you to this end. Now, when you come into the New Testament, in Galatians chapter 3, verse 29, you read this about us. And if you are Christ's, are you Christ's? If you've given your life to Christ, you're his. Then you are Abraham's offspring, heirs according to the promise. In other words, in some way, you have become God's people. The Abrahamic Covenant is cashing itself out and finding fulfillment in Christ, who grants you a standing as God's people. So a first step in your redemption is that God in Christ has brought you in to be his people. Promised long ago, but now in Christ, you are God's people. 1 Peter will call you a chosen race, a royal priesthood. Thank God for your position, the first step in redemption.